Guys, what we discussed in the last session? What we discussed in the last session? In the last session, we discussed about what is unit testing and how we are going to perform unit testing by using JUnit. So can you tell me what is a JUnit and why we need to go for JUnit? What is JUnit and why we need to go for JUnit, guys? JUnit is a free and open source Java based framework. This JUnit is used for project unit testing. What is the meaning of unit testing? Unit testing nothing but testing individual components of the application. That is called unit testing. Unit testing is used to identify whether our methods are working as expected or not. Okay. It is used to identify bugs in the code. With this help of unit testing, we can provide bug-free code for higher environment. And when we are performing unit testing, we are going to perform isolated unit testing. Okay. What is the meaning of isolated unit testing? So when I'm testing the REST controller, only the REST controller logic should be tested. Okay. When I'm testing the service, only service logic should be tested. Okay. That is called isolated testing. When we are going for isolated testing, we are going to use mocking also, right? What is that mocking? The process of creating substitute object for the real object is called as mocking. So to perform this mocking, we are going to use mocking frameworks, right? And when we go for the unit testing, another important thing is code coverage of our application. What is the meaning of code coverage of our application? The process of identifying which lines of code is unit tested and which lines of code is missed in the unit testing, which is called code coverage. How we are getting that code coverage report? To get the code coverage report, we are using Jacaco plugin is available. Jacaco plugin, it is going to tell you the code coverage percentage also. Now, how do we perform unit testing by using Spring Boot, guys? In the Spring Boot, there is a test starter available. In the Spring Boot, there is a test starter available. Using this test starter, we are performing unit testing for our application. In the last session, we implemented unit testing for REST API. Okay. Now refresh, right click, run as Maven test goal. So we are going to execute Maven test goal. Right. Go to the console. Test case is executed. Test case is executed. Total 5 test cases are there. The build got success. Now go to the project coverage report. Coverage report will be available in the target folder, site folder, Jacoco folder. Here index.html file will be available. Okay. This is the location where my coverage report is there. So JUnit app, SRC, target, site, Jacoco, index.html. What is the coverage we are having? 74%. If you see REST controller, in the REST controller, all the methods are tested. So everything is in the green color. That means it is tested. But if you go to service, in the service, nothing is tested. So 2 methods are there. They are in the red color. That means unit testing is not done for our service class. So for the REST controller, we are able to implement the unit testing. Now we need to implement unit testing for our service class also. Okay. How do we test service class methods now? So are you clear? Did you practice the unit testing for REST controller methods? Did you practice unit testing for REST controller methods? Yes. We discussed yesterday what is unit testing, what is mocking, how do we create mock objects also here. Test message REST controller. So my REST controller class is dependent on service class. So that's why for the service I created mock object. When we create the mock object, we need to define the behavior for mock object also. Okay, then as we are testing the REST controller, we need to create the request and we need to send the request. When we send the request to the REST controller, it is giving some response. Okay, so that response we are going to validate. That response we can verify the content or we can verify status code also to check whether our code is working as expected or not. Is this clear? Good. Next one. How do we test service class now? For the service class, coverage is 0. For service class, coverage is 0. I just want to execute these methods as part of unit testing. So to execute the service class, is there any dependent object for the service? No dependent object for the service. No dependent object. So directly we can create the test class and we can call the methods, right? So let me go and create a test here. New class message service test. Message service test is required, right? Now 1 minute. New class in.ashokid dot service message service test. Message service test class is available. So this inside this class, I want to perform the unit testing. So to represent this class is a service class and it is a test class. I'm going to write one annotation called @Spring Boot test annotation. So what is the meaning here? When we are testing the REST controller, what is the annotation I have given? WebMVC test annotation I have given. WebMVC test annotation is used to tell which MVC class you want to test, which REST controller class you want to test, that we are representing by using this WebMVC test annotation. When it comes to service class testing, we are going to specify @boot to test annotation. Now, I want to test this one, private message service. So this is my target class. This is my target class. For this target class, any dependency available or dependency not available? Dependency not available. If required in future, we can use the dependent also, right? But currently dependency is not available. So let me try with auto wiring. Let me go with auto wide annotation. Okay. Then let me go and create public void. What method available in the service class? Get welcome message available. Public void test welcome message. Test welcome message. How do we test it? Message service dot get welcome message. Now I'm calling this method. I'm getting that message. If the message is not null, I set not null of welcome. So I'm not comparing the message here. Whether message is coming or not, I'm testing that. Whether message is coming or not, I'm testing that. If a message is coming from that method, that means that method is tested successfully. Same thing we will do for greet message also. If you want to compare the results, asset equals will be available. If you want to check some data is coming from the method or not, for that I'm using asset not null method. Now let's test it now. Refresh, right click, run as Maven test. I'm executing this as Maven test goal. So total 6 test cases got executed. Now go to the test report. Now percentage is increased. Percentage earlier for service it was less percentage. Now service percentage increased to 63%. Go to the service class, check it now. So welcome message is executed in the unit testing. Greet message is not executed in the unit testing. Okay. Now, so let me perform the test for the remaining method also. That is test greet message. Public void test greet message is available. Test greet message is available. Message service dot get greet message. Message service dot get greet message available. If a message is not null, that means my test case is passed. Now refresh. Do the Maven test again. Run as Maven test. Run as Maven test. All right. Test cases got executed. Coverage report generated. Now we are able to get 90% of the coverage. REST package 100% coverage. Service package also 100% coverage is available. Go to this one, service. Earlier, these two methods were not tested in the unit testing. Red color, less percentage available. Now these two methods are tested. Now we are getting good percentage. We are getting 90%. Now let me create another scenario where our service class is dependent on some repository or some DAO. Now go to this normal service and let me create one DAO class also. New class user DAO. In.ashok I did a DAO package. User DAO is available. Or else let me create DAO as a interface. There is no implementation. Okay. Now public string get find name. Public string find name. I'm passing integer ID. That is user ID. I created one DAO interface. Okay. Implementation is not available for the interface. Now for this DAO, there is a method. In this DAO, there is a method. That method is called abstract method. Okay. Now this DAO is getting called from a service, which is user service. There is a service available called user service. User service is a Spring Bean. We are using @service annotation for that. @service annotation available. This service is dependent on the DAO. Private user DAO, user DAO. We are doing auto wiring. Okay. Now inside the user service, I'm writing one method, public string get user name by taking user ID. Now what it is doing, user DAO dot find name. User DAO dot find name. Whatever the name is coming, I'm going to return the same name. I'm going to return the same name. Now I want to perform unit testing for this service class, guys. I want to perform unit testing for this service class. My service is dependent or my service is independent now. Service is dependent or independent? Dependent. If I want to execute service method, it should call the DAO method. DAO is a class or DAO is an interface. Now, can I test my service or I cannot test my service? Can I test my service or I cannot test my service? Come on, guys. I have service class. Inside the service class, there is a method. My service class method is dependent on the DAO class method. But DAO, there is no implementation for the DAO, only interface is available. You are working on the service class methods. Someone in your team working on the DAO class methods. Today, the DAO developer is on leave. Your service method is completed. So you need to test your service method. To test your service method, DAO is required, but the DAO is an interface, implementation not available. Then do you need to wait for the DAO to be completed, or you can test your service by using mock DAO? When my class is dependent on the another class, I want to test my service class. My service is dependent on the DAO. Do I need to wait for the DAO to be completed, or I can mock the DAO and I can test my service? I can mock the DAO and I can test my service. Now see, before adding this user DAO and user service, what is the coverage of our project? 90% coverage is available. Now, one interface and one class is added. Refresh, run as Maven test. Run as Maven test. Okay, test is completed. Now it is failing. It is failing when I am doing Maven test. Why it is failing, guys? Why it is failing? I am having auto wiring on user DAO. When I am having auto wiring for the user DAO, whenever the Maven test is executing, it is trying to inject the DAO object. Okay, so DAO is available to inject or DAO not available to inject. DAO is not available to inject. Application failed to start. When the test is started, field user DAO service required of a bean type user DAO that could not be found. Okay, so injecting that by using auto wiring. Failed to load our application context. There is a error available. Now, in this scenario, what we need to do is @auto void, and we are going to use required is equal to false. Whenever you write @auto void, dependent is mandatory. But when I specify required is equal to false, it's not mandatory. If DAO available, then only load it. If not available, ignore that. Now refresh, run as Maven test. Go to console, clear the console. This time it got success. Last time it got failed, because if you see in my service class, I am using auto wiring for the user DAO. User DAO is only interface. For that, there is no implementation class available. Okay, next one. Go to the coverage and check it. What happened? From 90% it came to 80%. Why coverage is reduced? Why coverage is reduced? Come on, man. Why coverage from 90% it came to 80%? Why the coverage came from 90% to 80%? Because one new class is added. So if your classes are increasing, unit test cases also should be increased. If the methods are increasing, unit test scenarios should be increased. So if you are not doing the unit testing properly, then your code coverage will be reduced. Now, see here where the coverage is reduced. Earlier service having 100%. Now it came to 66%. Go to service, message service. Any problem with the message service? No. All the lines are tested. Go to user service. This is the problem. My user service method is not tested. User service is independent. User service is dependent now. Come on. Is it independent or it is dependent? Dependent. User service is dependent on the DAO. DAO is a class or interface. Whenever my target is user service now, when I am going to test user service, will I inject real DAO or I will inject mock DAO? First of all, real IMPL not available. There is no IMPL for that interface. I need to create a mock object. I need to inject a mock object into service, and I need to test my service functionality. My target is service method is working as expected or not. To test service method is working as expected or not, I need to mock the DAO. Mock DAO I will inject into service. Then I will call service method and I will check service method working as expected or not. Able to follow this? Now, so go and create test class for user service now. Test Java, user service test, new class, user service test. Click on finish. How to represent this is a test? Remember one point. When we are doing the testing for service classes, we are using a annotation called @Spring Boot test annotation. @Spring Boot test annotation. What is the meaning of that? it is going to act as a test class. In the Spring Boot, we are using this class as a test class. All right. Next one. This service is dependent on the DAO. So what we need to do now? Private user DAO, user DAO. How to represent, how to create a mock object for a bean? What is the annotation to create a mock object for the bean? We will use annotation called @mock bean annotation. We are going to use one annotation called @mock bean annotation. We will use annotation called mock bean. Where we need to use this mock bean? Where we need to inject this mock bean? Come on. Where we need to inject this mock bean? What is our target? User service. Okay. I need one user service bean, private user service, user service. Now I'm going to specify inject mocks. I'm going to specify one annotation called inject mocks annotation. What is the meaning of inject mocks? That is my target. For that target, inject the mock beans and perform the unit testing. So the meaning is this test class is going to act as a JUnit class. So I'm representing this class as a unit test class by using Spring Boot test annotation. And this user service is dependent on the DAO. For the DAO, I need a mock object. For that, I'm going to use @mock bean. Okay. Then I'm creating user service. User service is my target. In this target, I need to inject my mock object. Okay. For that, I'm using annotation called inject mocks. If it is a real class, we will do the dependency injection by using auto wiring. But it is a unit testing. Mock object should be injected to the target. To inject a mock object into target, we will use annotation called inject mocks annotation. Then let us test public void. What is the method we need to test? Get username. Public void test get username. Okay. Now this method I need to test it. To test this method, I'm going to call service method, which is user service dot get username with a ID. Get username with a ID. So I'm getting some username. If username is not null, then I will say my test is passed. How to verify? Asset not null. If asset not null of username, it is passed. So how to represent this as a test? By using @test annotation, we are going to represent this as a test method. Now, mock object is created. Mock object will be injected. But is there any behavior for the mock object? What it is going to return? Null value. Can we debug this test now? Can we debug this test now? Yes, let me debug this test and see what will happen. Look at the code before debugging. I have user service. I want to perform the unit testing for user service. User service is dependent on user DAO. I have user service which is dependent on the user DAO. So user DAO, as it is a dependent, I'm creating mock object for that. That mock object I'm injecting into target by using inject mocks annotation. Then we have test username method is available. @test method is available. User service dot get username. I'm calling the target class method. Target class method is calling the DAO class method. Mock DAO will be injected. Let me print DAO name system.out.println user DAO dot get class dot get name. What is the purpose of get class dot get name? It will print a implementation class of that interface. The variable is holding which class object it is going to print that. Now go here, debugging, right? Yep. Run as debug as JUnit test. Okay. I'm starting this as a test in the debug mode. Okay. Method user service. Can you see for DAO what is happened, guys? DAO, what happened? Mock object is created for the DAO. We are having DAO as a interface. We are having DAO as a interface. For that interface, mock object is created. For that interface, mock object is created. Now go to service method. Exception we are getting. Why? Why we are getting exception? F8. We got the exception. See the reason. Cannot invoke because this user DAO is null. So that means whenever we are printing user DAO get class dot get name, we are getting null pointer exception. We are getting null pointer exception. Why null pointer exception? Service test class mock bean is available. Inject mocks available. Mock object we are injecting and we are getting null pointer exception. We should not. Refresh. Run as Maven test. Debug as JUnit test. Mock DAO is created, but mock DAO is not injected to service. F6. What is the user DAO we are having, guys? Null. Null dot method will get null pointer exception. So what is missing? Dependency injection is missing. The mock object we created for the DAO is not injected into our service. Inject mocks available. At the rate boot test mock bean inject mocks test class. If I remove this, guys, let me create IMPL. It is failing without IMPL. User DAO IMPL. Let me implement that interface. Let me represent this as Spring Bean by using repository. Find name. Based on the ID, I want to return some name. Let me return the name something like John. Okay. Now I have DAO which is having IMPL also. Real DAO IMPL method is returning the name as John. Now let me debug this. Debug as Maven test. Build failure, null pointer exception. That means mock object is not injecting here. Test Java. user service, mock bean, inject mocks, run as, debug as JUnit test. Mock object is not injecting into target. Let us see why. Debug as user service test, debug as JUnit test. I'm trying to debug the test case again. So I want to see why this mock object is not injected properly. Debug JUnit test, guys. Okay. F6. No. Still we are getting as null value. Anything we are missing? Mock bean, inject mocks available, test method, user service, user DAO. Auto wiring. I'm trying to extend properties by using some mock specific operation we need to specify. Extend with mockito session. No. Right. Now it is coming, guys. Good. So when we are injecting the mock objects by using this inject mocks annotation, we need to specify one more extra annotation which is called extend with a mockito extension. So when we specify this extend with the mockito extension, whatever the mock bean is available, that mock bean is injecting into our service. So earlier when I did not specify this annotation, what is happening? Mock object is creating, but that mock object is not going to target class. Mock object is not injected to our target class. Now I'm writing extend with a mockito extension, right? Now let me debug this test case, debug as JUnit test. Okay. Now, so I came to my service class for testing purpose, user DAO. What I am doing, user DAO dot get class dot get name. So what is the class name it is printing? Is it a real DAO IMPL class or it is a mock DAO class? Mock DAO. Mock DAO is injected into our service. How we injected mock DAO into service? By using inject mock annotation. What is the purpose of mock bean and inject mocks and test annotation? Come on. What is mock bean? Mock bean is used to create mock object for the given class or interface. What is inject mocks? Inject the dependent mock objects into target. What is @test? To represent this as a JUnit test method. Okay, fine. F8. Let me do this once again. Debug as JUnit test. First, the test is starting from our test class. This is our test class. Test class is calling the service method. Service, for the service we created mock object. Now you see, when I keep cursor on the service, inside the service user DAO is injected. Am I doing that dependency injection, or IOC is taking care of that? So real DAO injected or mock DAO is injected? Mock DAO. This is the annotation. Inject mocks. Whatever the dependent object is available, that dependent object is injected into our target object. Got this? Fine. Now user service dot get username F6. Okay. Now we are getting username. Go to user DAO. Real DAO or mock DAO? Mock DAO. Mock DAO dot find name. What is the name we are getting? Are we going to get any name? Do we have any behavior in the mock object, or we don't have any behavior in the mock object? We don't have any behavior in the mock object. Okay. What is the name is coming? Null. If real DAO is called, what is the name should come? John. But now I'm not getting any name. My test case will be failed here. Asset not null. I'm expecting some name, but I'm not getting that name. Why that name is not coming? DAO is not giving that name. Why DAO is not giving that name? Guys, why DAO is not giving that name? Why DAO is not giving that name? So is it a real DAO or is it a mock DAO here? Mock DAO. Did I specify behavior for the mock DAO, or I did not specify behavior for the mock DAO? I did not specify behavior for mock DAO. Now let me print the name we are getting. Okay. System.out.println name. So if you are getting John, that means real DAO method is called. If you get some other name, that means mock DAO method is called. Now go to here. How do you know how to set the behavior for mock object? Do you know how to set the behavior for mock object? Yes. How to set the behavior for mock object? When, come on. When user DAO dot find by name is called with 101, then return some value. Okay. Some Ashok. So whenever DAO method is there, what I am telling is, if anybody calls DAO method with 101 as a parameter, I am telling to return Ashok as a output for that. If anybody call DAO method with 101, then return Ashok as a output for that. So dummy behavior. When you are doing mocking, the mock methods will not give any output. They are just empty. So we need to set the behavior for the mock method. To set the behavior for the mock method, we are doing like this. When this DAO method is called, then you return this name. So when the service is calling the DAO method, dummy DAO method will be executed. Real DAO method will not be executed. Are you clear with this? Yeah. Let's do the test again. Right click, debug as JUnit test. No. Okay. I'm already mock object is created for the DAO, and that mock object is injected into service also. In the normal business classes, auto wiring will be used for dependency injection. In the unit testing, inject mocks annotation will be used for the dependency injection. Define the behavior. call the service method, print it, DAO, dummy object is injected, dummy object method is called. What is the name is coming? Ashok is coming. Why we are not getting John? Why we are not getting the John? So inside the service, real DAO injected or mock DAO is injected? Mock DAO is injected. Return that name. If the name is not null, then I will say my test case is pass. Okay. So when we are performing unit testing, mocking is very important. Mocking is very important. Now, can we check the coverage? Before this one, coverage is 80%. Now check the coverage. Right click, run as Maven test. Right click, run as Maven test. Clear this. Build got success. Go and check it. Now the coverage from 80 increased it to 90%. Earlier, service was having less percentage. Now user service also tested as part of unit testing. Unit testing by using JUnit. As part of unit testing, mocking for isolated unit testing. And how perfectly we have done the unit testing, for that we are using code coverage. Code coverage we are getting by using Jacoco. Jacoco is used to generate code coverage report for our application. Are you able to follow this? Perfect. Good. Any questions, anyone? Let me push this code to GitHub repository, guys. Yesterday I have shared, right? So I will update the same repository. Git status. Now if you see what is extra today, I modified my existing REST controller. This is modified. I added a DAO package. I created another service class, which is user service. Right. Let me push this. What is the command? Now, first I'm checking my status. This is the status of my working tree. How do I push my code to GitHub now? First, I need to add the files to staging area. How to add the files to staging area? Git add -a. Then let us verify status. Yes, status. All the files are eligible for commit. Now let me do the commit. Git commit -m code update. Now let us do git push. So with this, our latest code is pushed into GitHub repository. In the yesterday's notes, I have given the link. In the same repository, I have pushed my updated code also. So 2 service classes, 1 REST controller is available. Coverage also we are getting 90%. We tested all the methods available in that class. Right. So when you are going for unit testing, especially for freshers, this mocking is confusion, and how to define the behavior for the mock object is the confusion. So you need lot of practice, then only you will understand unit testing. Writing normal code is easy, but writing unit test code is difficult. Writing normal code is easy, but writing unit test code is difficult. So you need to be careful about that. Perfect. Now, next one, I will give you one task on the JUnit. Okay. So the question is how to perform unit testing for private methods. Now we are having service class. Service class method is available. We are able to call the service method and we are able to test it. For example, inside my service class, there is one private method is available. Okay. Private string get user DOB, something like this. Public string get user DOB available. String DOB is equal to some value, something like this. Okay. Now I'm going to return that value. I'm going to return that DOB. What type of a method it is? It is a private method. Now in the interview, they will ask this question. How do you perform unit testing for private methods? How do you perform unit testing for private methods? All right, see this one. This is a task you need to analyze. How to perform unit testing for private methods. How to perform unit testing for private methods. That is one interview question. I want you to do some research and implement unit testing for private method, which is available in our target class. Now, so if I add this private method, see the coverage percentage. Currently, how much percentage? 90. Run as Maven test. Build success, but coverage reduced. From 100 percentage, it came to 88. Overall percentage from 90 to 86. Go to service, user service now. So this new method is not tested, which is a private method. So how do you perform unit testing for private methods? That is the question. You got my point? Good. Okay. So guys, with this we understood what is unit testing, what is the main benefit of doing the unit testing, what is mocking, what is code coverage, what is mocking, what is code coverage, how do we perform unit testing for Spring Boot application. Okay, as part of this unit testing, we used several annotations. Okay, what are the annotations we used? We used annotation called @webmvc test annotation. What is the meaning of WebMVC test annotation? What is the purpose of WebMVC test annotation? It is used to specify. It is used to specify which controller or REST controller you are going to test. Then we used one annotation which is @extend with. What is the annotation? @extend with. We have used one annotation. What is the purpose of @extend with? When you are injecting the mock objects into target, we need to go for @extend with. And we used one annotation which is @inject mocks. What is the purpose of inject mocks? What is the purpose of inject mocks annotation, guys? Inject mocks annotation to inject mock objects into target. And we used one annotation which is @test annotation. What is the purpose of @test? To represent our method as a unit test method. So whatever the unit test methods you are writing in the test class, to represent that as a unit test method, we are writing @test annotation. Okay, so you need to remember these things. And we used one class which is mock MVC class. When we are doing the unit testing for the REST controller, I have used mock MVC class. What is the purpose of this mock MVC? To send the request to the REST controller. Mock MVC.perform. I created the request to my REST controller method. I want to test my REST controller method. For that, I'm using mock MVC request builder. I created get request with greet URL, and I want to send that request by using mock MVC. Then it is giving some response. Once I get the response, I can validate the response content, or I can validate response status code also to decide whether this test is successful or this test is failure. Okay, good. So today I want you to analyze how to perform unit testing for a private method by using JUnit. Let's do some research on that before coming to tomorrow's session. Okay, good. Fine guys, so with this we understood JUnit and we learnt about Docker, we learnt about Jenkins. So I hope all of you practiced Docker and Jenkins integration. Is it working? Working or not working? Working. Fine. So guys, tomorrow, Friday, right? So tomorrow we are going to understand how to prepare resume. Okay, tomorrow class will be on the resume preparation, how to prepare a fresher resume, how to prepare experienced resume, and how we need to attend the interviews, how to cover your gap as a experience. Those things we are going to discuss in the tomorrow session. Got my point? Good. And from Monday, Angular class is available in the online. From Monday onwards at 7 p.m. Angular batch is available. So you need to attend that Angular classes from Monday. Then from Monday onwards, I will take the classes for Linux commands and AWS cloud also. So 2 classes will be available from Monday. So 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. I will take the class for AWS cloud. That will take 1 week to 10 days of time to understand what is that cloud, how we need to work with the cloud platform as a developer. Parallelly, 7 to 8 Angular class will be available. Angular class is online, AWS class will be available offline also. You will get the access for Angular videos as well. For the full stack people, we are giving that Angular. For JRTP and full stack people, Angular we are giving as part of the syllabus only. Angular will be taken by Vijay sir and I will be taking care of that Linux and AWS part. Got my point? Good. Fine. Thank you guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have class on resume preparation. Thank you.